All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about what Terence Crawford had to say about Errol Spence Jr. giving him a whole lot of credit that other people have not been giving him. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're in the 147-pound division, talking about the two of the best fighters in the world. Actually, man, they may be number one and number two as far as best in the world at this particular moment. I know there's a lot of people that have Canelo Alvarez up there, maybe bringing in other people like Tyson Fury into the equation. But for my money, Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford are two of the best fighters in the world. And Terence Crawford recently had an interview where he acknowledged as much about Errol Spence Jr., specifically giving him credit for things that a lot of his fans, Terence Crawford fans, don't typically give Errol credit for. Now, before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber and supporter to the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. It really, really does mean a lot. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. Please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Excuse me. Voice is going to be a little bit raspy. Have been sick over the last week or so, and I think it's finally catching up to my voice. All right, so let's get into this. Terence Crawford gave an interview to Showtime Sports in which he talked about the fight that could be coming up between him and Errol Spence. If you are somewhere on a, been somewhere underneath a rock, Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford are currently in negotiations, and I think it's safe to say final stages of wrapping up a deal where the two of these guys will get into the ring and fight for the undisputed title of the world at the welterweight division. Errol has the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF belts, and Terence Crawford has the WBO belt. This is probably the most highly anticipated fight that boxing has had since the Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Manny Pacquiao fight. One of the biggest and most important welterweight fights that we've had probably since, I'm sure some people would not put this in there, but I remember the Zab Judah versus Corey Spinks fight. Wasn't quite this big, but it was for undisputed. But then you also had this real big fight in the 1990s between Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Chito Trinidad. And then, of course, as far as modern boxing goes, the real big welterweight matchup was Sugar Ray Leonard, the 1976 Olympic gold medalist, versus Tommy the Hitman Hearns, knockout artist from Detroit, Michigan. When those guys met up, right, Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford is right there with that level of fight, that level of anticipation, and I do believe that level of skill. I think both these guys are guys that are going to wind up in the Hall of Fame. And when we look back on this fight and all of the conversations and things that took place about it, we're going to look back on it favorably for both parties. Now, unfortunately, right about now, leading up to the fight, we don't have the benefit of the hindsight that comes with fights where you really get two very, very great fighters fighting one another. Right now, you have a lot of talk, which is very one-sided on one side or very one-sided on another side. And I'm really glad that in this interview that Terence Crawford cleared some of that up as it relates to what Errol Spence Jr. is able to do. And specifically what he talked about was the concept of making adjustments, right? And getting into the ring and seeing what works. And if something works, you keep going with it. If something is a little bit off, then you change it, you switch up, and you do something different. And making adjustments is a hallmark of a great fighter. For the most part, it's important to every fighter, but the degree to which you're able to do it against really, really high level opponents really does speak to how great you are as a fighter. Now, Terence Crawford is renowned for making quote-unquote adjustments in the ring against his competitors, and rightfully so, right? He is somebody that can fight in the orthodox stance. He can fight in the southpaw stance. You know, he is somebody that can, like in the Julius and Dungo fight, if he sees somebody's in the southpaw stance or somebody's throwing looping punches, he can just stay up there, just go straight at you and get you out of there, right? Just throw it with big hooks, big uppercuts, right? Catching you in between the shots that you're throwing, and be able to like do what's necessary to get a guy like that out of there. If he's fighting somebody that, say, like a Jose Benavidez, that's not coming forward at him, somebody that's staying pretty stationary behind the jab, like Postal, he can also make the adjustments necessary to win the rounds, and then eventually look for the big shot that could get him out of there. But Errol Spence Jr. has not been someone that has gotten a lot of credit for doing that. He's pretty much been talked about up until this point by many boxing fans as somebody that's just a come forward fighter that sticks his chin in his chest, weathers the storm of getting beat up while he's coming on in the inside, getting to the inside and wearing the other fighter down, and that pretty much being the only thing that Errol Spence Jr. can do. Well, Terence Crawford is saying, no, that is not the case with him. He's a very smart fighter. He gets in the ring. He makes subtle adjustments to what he needs to do, just like I do, which shows a high level of boxing intelligence from Terence Crawford to be able to see that. Because that has definitely been the case for Errol in many fights, especially the fight that he just had with Yordenis Ugas, where he made several adjustments in that fight, like from throwing a combination up top, and with a straight right with the right jab, then the left, then the straight left and the right hook, and then the right hook. But then he would basically try to come behind that with a left hook, and Yordenis Ugas was slipping it. He was forcing, and then Errol made an adjustment because Derek James said, look, you're getting him to duck down in those combinations, on the bottom. So that's what he started doing. He started throwing that three-piece up top, and when 4 and 5 came, instead of throwing it up top, he would throw it down low. So that's when Yordenis Ugas would dip down into those shots, right? Makes those adjustments. Also makes very subtle adjustments, like fighting on either side, even when he's on the inside, fighting slightly to the left of the fighter if it's necessary, or fighting slightly to the right. Small little adjustments, small things that allows him to neutralize the adjustments that are taking place from the guy that he's fighting. In this particular, I'm talking about Yordenis Ugas, right? So this is not some fight where you're going to have, either one of these guys just be able to do whatever they want to do at any point in time, and the other guy is going to be stupefied by it. That's why it is that level of fight, this high level of fight, because both of these guys are able to make adjustments. And I'm really glad that that Terence Crawford, spoke to that, because it shows that he has a realistic view of what he's going to get into, and he's more than likely not going to get surprised, because if he's studying this guy and knows what adjustments that he's making, and knows when Errol's making the adjustments and what adjustments he prefers to make, that enables him to be that much more successful in the fight. But it was just interesting, and it was nice to hear Terence Crawford say that. I'm picking Errol Spence Jr. to win, but I understand that this is a very, very close fight that could go either way, and the fight really is going to turn on those type of little things and what type of adjustments people make, in the fight. I just think both guys are very, very capable of doing it, and it's not just some one-sided thing. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section, and with that, I'm out. Deuces.